I think we should talk about behind the scenes at pitch, because this is the thing that I'm most curious about and want to talk about. What is your process for making an episode? So I kind of already know, like I have some insight, but I'm just curious, like how do you come up with an idea for what an episode's going to be? Does the idea just come naturally out of brainstorming, or do you land an interview and so you just formulate a show around that? And then once you figure out what the episode is going to be, how do you record it? Where do you record it? How many hours does Angel have to spend editing it? Like how does it go? How does like the average episode come together?
So I'll take the front end because that's my work. I'm usually in pre-production, and Angel does some of pre-production and all of the post-production usually. And it starts with me going, "Hey, Angel, I have this great idea for a topic." He goes, "Hold your horses. Let's go to Whole Foods first and get something to eat." And so we go to Whole Foods, and I talk his ear off on what my idea is. He goes, "Okay, but that's only half an episode." And I'm like, "No, it's not." He's like, "No, it's only half an episode." I go, "Yeah, you're probably right." He's like, "What about we add this in?" I go, "Let's run with that." And that forms the episode. Or if it's an interview, I reach out to people that I'm interested in interviewing, like Bill Thompson, who was head of Young Storytellers. I've been in correspondence with him since I started volunteering with Young Storytellers back in 2018. And he's just a good guy, and said yes to us. I'm such an optimist, and I always expect everybody that I reach out to say yes to me. And so he said yes, and then I emailed every screenwriter for an original screenplay who has ever won or been nominated for an Oscar from 1960 until modern day. I emailed all of them that I could find, or their manager, or their agent, or their PR, or them individually if I could find them. I didn't hear back from a lot of them. Or Angel has this great, like, weird New York, Brooklyn style neighborhood in Hollywood where he just runs into people and befriends them because they walk their dog, and they happen to know Liz Hannah.
Yeah. I think most impressively is that you actually go say hi. I see people walking their dog by my house and I close the door.
Angel's a friendly guy. And see, I've worked with Vanishing Angle, and Angel knew them from having done the Fun Lab, and they produced my Shudder film that I wrote. And then I knew Dustin Morrow because I did a year of free screenwriting where I was new to moving to Hollywood. And I was like, I'm doing a year free so that I can make all of these connections and meet people and to grow as a writer. And I met him during that time and ended up writing something for him and just kept in touch with him. And who am I missing? Who else did we? Rampus, we met at Sundance Collab. Angel and I did the Sundance thing, and then Rampus, I'd been getting his emails for a couple of years, and just reached out to him, and he agreed to be on the podcast.
Yeah, so Leah just generally asks people. She has no problem asking, "Hey, do you want to come be on our podcast?"
Great, yeah.
And then what happens is when the person agrees to it, she gets it scheduled, and then she usually, if we're doing it live, we do it at my place, and she'll come over, and I'm like, "Wait, what are we doing? Why are we? Who is this person?" If I don't know them, and I'm like, "Oh, we need to like rethink this entire interview." And of course, they're inbound at 45 minutes away.
Yeah.
We have this huge existential conversation about what the heck we're doing.
We have this
every time.
Before every single interview we have to do.
I'm like, wait, what are you thinking? Why would we do that? Why would we ask those questions? And
what does the interview tend to progress along your planned script, or do they just end up going off on their own anyway?
Well, I have a list because my background is as a journalist. I have a list of questions, and I found out that for the length of time that we do these interviews and with how very conversational we want it to be, I just come up with a list of 10 questions now. Angel has his own list, and
I never have
he's
a list. I
he's
rarely have a list.
he rarely has a list, but he's really good at riffing.
I free spin. I hear something and
Yeah,
I'm like, I want to know more about that.
yeah.
Well, is there any correlation between the quality of the episode and what you chose to eat at Whole Foods while brainstorming it?
Absolutely. I think Whole Foods should sponsor us as a hot bar.
Agreed.
I think Whole Foods and Milk Jar Cookies should sponsor us. I just realized I could
Mm-hmm.
probably reach out to Courtney and talk to her
Yeah.
about some cookie sponsorship. Only if we eat something bad that upsets our stomach before the interview.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise we're fine. But the debate she and I have immediately before the interview starts, it really just gets her and I on the same page about what we're each thinking for the interview, because we differ significantly in how we approach the interviews.
We're diametrically opposed.
She, again, comes from a journalism background, so she's like, this is an interview. And I'm like, it's actually like a conversation that just goes anywhere, right? So, and then through understanding what her goals are and her understanding my confusion about everything, we are then better able to like play tennis in the middle of the actual recording of the conversation or interview. But I'm finding that's a really integral part, because we do approach these things from such different points of view that's been the biggest surprise for me. I'm like, oh, like she's got this agenda, and I'm like, I don't know that that'll work for what I need to do for post. Like, so she comes in and she's like, for a couple episodes, you're like, oh, I want to do a game. And I'm like, a game? Okay, what do you mean a game? Like, how are our listeners?
I'll throw it at him all of a sudden. I'm like, I have this idea. And he's like, 30 minutes away, Welch.
Yeah. And I'm like, how, like, then I have to like conceptualize how to edit this game, how to make sure the game doesn't lag. Like, I have to think about my entire post flow and the audience and their experience of this game. I'm like, well, do people even want to hear Liz Hannah play a game? What is this game? I don't know how to play this game. Are people going to feel like they're in the spot? So it's an entire like panic attack that I have about her ideas.
But it comes from, I'm so excited and I have all this hope, and I'm like, this is going to be so much fun. And he's just like, whoa, Welch, hold your horses. This is a terrible idea. How is this even going to like have an audience on the podcast? I don't know about this. And then we end up doing it because Angel caved over my optimism. No, I don't know what happened.
We find a way to format it so we have multiple sections, is what it is.
He knows he can edit it out if it bombs.
Well, also we can like put it at the end, so we can have like the general basic interview where people who listen to us know that she and I are going to talk to somebody for 45 minutes approximately and get an interview. And then at the end of that, I'm like, oh, if we do the game at the end, then we can have a different section, and it doesn't like innervate a traditional episode, and it's like an easier editorial task for myself.
And he's referring to the Liv Hannah episode. We played a game that I play with a lot of people, which is 4 people minimum to play. Somebody picks the title of a non-existent movie. Somebody picks 2 actors, either dead or living, doesn't matter as long as they're well known. And then somebody picks the genre, and then the last person pitches what that movie is.
I would not want to go last.
What's that?
I would not want to go last. That sounds like the hard part.
Everybody gets a turn. And then the other thing that we did was when we had Katrina Mercedes on, is I had everybody write questions and put their questions into a container or a hat. And then we got kind of random questions, which I thought was fun.
But editing that stuff is difficult because there's like when you're doing something physical in an environment, to edit the dead air out is a significant editorial task. So the result came out pretty fun, but it was more work on my end, which is fine. I just need to know ahead of time how we actually execute on an idea. So we're figuring out how to execute on her ideas. And hopefully she'll start sharing her ideas with me more than an hour in advance of the actual interviews.
And I would think I was just put on this earth to make your life a little more difficult and challenging and fun, to work your neuroplasticity. I think it was an hour before Adam Sinclair's interview. I was like, also he has a thing to pitch. And you're like, what?
Yeah, it was interesting because I know Adam is an actor and a friend and a pilot, and I didn't realize that we just interviewed him last weekend, that he's got like a pretty significant pitch that he's working on and it's taken out and it's got some traction and whatnot. And I was like, wait, what? Like, I love Adam. He's great, but like, why are we talking to Adam on pitch? Like, he's been on some cool TV shows as an actor, but I don't know. And then she revealed to me like minutes before he showed up, oh, he has a pitch that is legitimate, that's working. It's like, oh, great, cool, thanks for sharing. Well in advance.
It's a docu-series, so it's not scripted or anything.
Angel, it was probably in the spreadsheet. She has spreadsheets for everything.
I do have, type A personality, but I always forget one thing that's very important. I don't know why.
Yeah, the spreadsheet is news to me. I don't know what you're talking about, Kelly.
Really? No, I have a spreadsheet with like 60 ideas on it.
No, I'm up to date on everything. So what we'll do then is we'll set up for the interview, whether it's Zoom or we'll set up in the apartment, and then the person will show up. We'll have a pre-interview, and then we'll chat and we'll have a good conversation.
Do some people respond better to the interview style or versus the conversational style? Like, is it dependent on the person, on how that conversation goes? Because
I think it's how well we know them, or if we don't know them, like with Hannah, but Carrie was there, then it's better if they're in the same environment as us, because there's so much body language happening, as opposed to things that you can't pick up on because of delays and whatnot.
Yeah. People and we're pretty lucky that once you get people talking, once we've gotten people talking about this stuff, they generally can talk about it. I haven't found that we have to like really probe and prod people. Liz was a unique case because Carrie, one of her best friends, was facilitating the interview for us, and she had a lot of insightful stuff. But she also didn't. I wouldn't categorize her as a talker. She was like, oh, this is the answer, and these are my thoughts and feelings about it. But she didn't then feel the need to like keep going on. Where some people like just keep going on and on and on. You're like, oh, they're just doing a ton of heavy lifting, and then we can just interject and kind of ask questions on what they've also like riffed on. But Liz was like a great balance for me between the two, like her offering things and then her also just like waiting to be asked the specific questions.
Yeah,
her story about confirming that she had sold a script, but she couldn't get in touch with her husband. Like, he wouldn't answer the phone because he's in a different time zone or something.
Yeah.
Man, I was listening in my car, just kind of cracking up. I was like, that would be awful. You could feel like the stress that she had. Like, she didn't want to tell anybody else at this party until she told her husband first. And like, just, I can imagine what that would be doing inside your brain. That was a fun story to listen to.
Especially with 2 teeth blacked out.
That just makes it better.
This is so good.
Yeah.
Okay. So then we'll wrap up the interview generally, and if we haven't gone to Whole Foods before, we definitely are going after. I'll tell you that.
We get so hungry, like interviewing people, like the setup and then the interview, and then it's like, I'm starving, Angel. It's 6 p.m. It's time for dinner.
Yeah. Then we'll eat, and then I'll make sure all the audio files are backed up and everything, but and then I edit. I'll edit and I'll kind of work on the episodes, and then later and later, before we actually go live, I send them to you two. Tell me if I missed anything. Is anything wrong with
it? That all sounds kind of how I envisioned it. So sometimes you do an interview, there's an intro that you guys do, where you talk about the intro. Does that happen beforehand? Does it happen afterwards? Is it just random per episode? You just kind of fill in what you need to fill in as you go?
So if I find, and I have found this quite a bit when I'm editing, I'm like, oh no, we need parts that we didn't get. We need a more thorough intro. We need a better transition. And then I've got a setup here, so I'll just either record it, or if Leah's coming over for something else, I'll have her record stuff. But what we've been trying to do is I'm trying to have live intros that Leah's been really crushing. So hats off to her. Live intros, that's recorded with the person there. You heard one with Stephen Horniak, and he made the joke. He's like, oh, I thought you were going to paraphrase. I didn't realize you were going to read everything.
Yeah.
But
I thought that was done after the fact when I was listening to it. I was like, oh, she went back in and added an intro or a bio for Stephen. And then all of a sudden he started talking. I was like, oh, no, I was wrong.
That was live. Leah goes hard in the paint with those intros. She just gets every little detail and goes through it, which is helpful for me editing. And I think it's made a couple of our guests uncomfortable because you list so many things, but like they should just stop doing so many things if they're going to
Well,
be
then
uncomfortable.
it's also before they come for the interview, I ask them, do you have a preferred bio? Because not everything online is true or accurate. And so I ask them first, and sometimes they're like, just whatever you find is fine. Like whatever is on LinkedIn, whatever is on IMDb, I'm like, okay, but I'm gonna read the whole thing. Or with Bill Thompson, I asked him for his bio, and he's like, whatever you find on LinkedIn. And then before we interviewed him, I said, this is your bio. Is it okay? He's like, shorten it. Mentions half of those things. I go, okay. So I
I
don't
mean,
think that they.
that's good because you don't want to offend somebody, right, by leaving things
Mhm.
out. Um,
Yeah.
there are guests, and you want them to feel like we're promoting them to some extent and welcoming them for the things they've accomplished. And if you leave out
Hmm.
the thing that's most important to them,
Yeah.
the last thing we want is Angel having to edit out the part where they yell at us for not giving them a good enough bio, right? That'll go
Yeah.
on our bonus episode. The
Yeah.
outtake.
Yeah. For real. And we've been fine tuning this process. So at the beginning, I would forget to do the proper introduction, and Angel's like, why aren't we introducing them in the interview? It makes my job easier. And like, thank you for that note. We will do that from now on because I like making Angel's life easier, despite all of the previous conversations we've just had. I do like to do that.
Well, so
And then,
oh, go
go
ahead.
ahead.
I was
No,
just gonna
go
say
ahead.
we're like 12 episodes in now. Do you
Mhm.
feel like it's getting easier? Are you guys getting more into a rhythm? Do you know what you're missing and how to get the right coverage for every interview? And like, do you feel like it's coming together and making more sense, regardless of when Angel actually delivers the files that have to be uploaded? Um, is the process that leads up to that feeling a little bit more predictable and streamlined?
Definitely, yeah. Executing, we're still getting better on executing everything. I still feel like our live like recaps and like outros need a little bit of work.
Mm.
But I at least, and I think Leah at least is as well, is aware of all the things we need and how to like flow from things. So we have a much better understanding now. 12 episodes in, 12 released episodes in, we have many more interviews recorded currently. So I'd say yeah. Leah, what do you think?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, cool. Um, for one last thing, there's a lot of music throughout Pitch. Where did that music come from?
Nobody knows for certain.
Oh,
You know what I've told you to, but you don't actually know for
that's
fact.
true. I haven't like validated it, although it hasn't had any copyright checks on YouTube, so it must be original.
Hmm.
It is
I
original.
think I did all the music cues and all the music for Pitch. I believe I figured all that out and did it.
It's just so people know, Angel also has his own podcast called Before the Fade, in which he's done a tremendous amount of music as well. So
Oh,
there's a lot of skill hiding behind uh, the narrow view we have of his abode there. There's recording equipment scattered throughout, musical equipment scattered throughout. So
yeah, it's a the whole creative factory over here.
yeah, he never gets to leave the studio.
I'm a slave to my creativity.
All right. That's the end of our topic behind the scenes. For everyone who hasn't listened to Pitch and who hasn't listened to all of the work that Leah and Angel are putting in to get those episodes out there and to do those interviews, you can find it at streetlamp.media, uh, www.streetlamp.media, or you can find the premium episodes of the podcast, which are commercial free, and they include pitches from actual screenwriters. Usually, those are paused for the time being while the Writers Guild is on strike. Um, but yeah, it's a great podcast. We look forward to your feedback. Get in touch, say hello. We're all on Twitter and Instagram. Um, yeah. Anything
Right.
else you guys want to finish with?
Cheers from Hollywood.
Cheers from Hollywood.
Cheers from Hollywood. All right.